Hello, Stitch People. Welcome to the Stitch People podcast. I'm Lizzie Bean, your host and the founder of Stitch People, where our goal with cross-stitching is to inspire your personal creativity, and our goal with podcasting is to help you make some new friends while you're at it. Today's episode with Amanda is so much fun. It was a joy to get to know her. And at the end of our interview for the podcast, we chatted a little bit after, and I was telling her how cool it is for me to chat with so many of you in the Stitch People community and see the full rainbow prism that is behind every single post in the Stitch People community. It's not just about a family portrait. It's not just about a technique or an idea, but behind every single one of those little crumbs of information about a person, you've got a fully fleshed individual with hopes and dreams and likes and interests. And I think that's really going to come through to you today, chatting with Amanda. We talk about her work, we talk about her family, her interests, and everything that drives her. And she's just such a cool, whole, beautiful person, just like each and every one of us. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Amanda. I sure did. I could have chatted with her forever. And I hope you have a fun time, everybody. Here we go. Actually, before we get started, I have just one more thing, but it's really, really cool. So as you're about to listen to in my interview with Amanda, she tells us about how she has used her love of Stitch People and cross-stitch family portraits. She has used this for good, for fundraising, for social justice, for all sorts of great things. And I was so inspired by this. So we actually set up another phone call after this podcast interview. I probably should have recorded it because she's so fantastic. But I picked her brain about a little bit more of the specifics of how she went about doing what she did. And I brainstormed on my own as well, talked with a couple other people, and we actually created a Stitch People for Good guide that you can download. Check it out on the blog.stitchpeople.com on Amanda's post. We're going to link it there. You can also find it on the podcast page just for convenience, stitchpeople.com/podcast. And we'll post it to social media as well with some links and make it available on the website. A free PDF ebook download that you can read and get inspired for how you can use Stitch People and your love of cross-stitch and stitching generally to do good in the world and give back to your communities, give back to people who need help in this world. So check it out. Check out our Stitch People for Good guide, and hopefully it will inspire you to get involved. Well, hello, Amanda. Thank you so much for being here today and for being willing to chat with me on the Stitch People podcast.
Yes, thank you. It's so nice to meet you. And I've seen the videos and the stitch along. So it's nice just to have the one-on-one
right.
to see you. So.
Hopefully it's pretty consistent.
It's
like
the
you know
same
what you're going to get, right?
Right.
Where are you from, Amanda? Where are you located?
So I am from Iowa, and I still live in Iowa. I've moved around a little bit from the Midwest. So I'm from a really small town, like 3,000 people. And then I went to a little bigger town for college. That was about 45 minutes away. And that's how we measure things in the Midwest is minutes, not miles.
Right.
And then I moved to Milwaukee after I graduated. And then I went to Columbus, Ohio a year after that. And I stayed out there for 7 years.
Okay.
Had a daughter. And then
congrats.
We all moved back to Iowa. Yeah, because that's where our family was. So,
great.
Yeah. It was a long...
Was it because of family that sort of brought you back now that you had a daughter and wanting to be closer to maybe grandparents and stuff like that?
Right.
Yeah.
I would say that. And we had, so my partner, well, he's my husband now, but at the time he was finishing his master's at the Ohio State. And then I worked in a law firm for a while. I've had many different jobs and things. And then I decided to get my master's in social work because I got a little burned out doing foreclosure law firm stuff.
Oof.
And then,
I imagine that.
Yeah, it was during all of that. Like I started like a week before Lehman Brothers and all that like collapsed. I remember all that. So anyway,
dun.
Yeah, it just wasn't for me. Yeah. I'm a little more social worky kind of a person. So I did my master's in social work because he was then staff, or not faculty, but working as an advisor at Ohio State. So I got a discount on my master's. So I'm like, why wouldn't I do this?
Yeah.
And then my last year of my master's, I was pregnant. So I graduated 2 weeks later, had my daughter, and then like 8 weeks after we had her, we were moving back to Iowa. So it was kind of like a bam, 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 bam sort of thing.
And how long have you been in Iowa since then?
So she's 7.
Okay.
So 7 years.
Okay,
yeah,
7 years.
So.
I was just trying to contextualize. Was this like 2 years ago? Or
No, it feels like it though, honestly.
Yeah.
And I don't know what, like going back, I would never, ever, ever suggest anyone do that with their first, but job change, life change, all of that. Cause so it was a lot, but at least we're moving back to family. And I think that was the one saving grace, but, so we do miss, Columbus is just a very different, it was much bigger than anything in Iowa.
Right. Well, as you were explaining it sounded distinctly like you were going from like bigger to bigger to bigger to Columbus, Ohio, which is pretty significant city. So, yeah. So are you back in, that small town that you grew up in, or?
No, I'm not. That's not really for me. So
Fair
we're
enough.
in Des Moines, which is the biggest in the capital of Iowa.
Good.
So
great.
And so we moved back to Ames, where Iowa State is. That's where we both had jobs after. And then I got a job where I'm at now in Des Moines, and then Dan, my husband, got a job, and then we eventually just moved. So
great.
So we've been in this house now for 5 years, I think.
Oh, nice. Okay, a little bit rooted for a while.
Yeah,
that's good.
Right.
That's
and we have another daughter too. So another daughter was in the mix there too. So yeah.
Awesome. That's great. You're like, I for some reason, just the phrase that's coming to my head right now is like, you're doing it. Just like, you've got the degrees, you got the house, you got the kids, like you're getting settled, getting into a groove. Tell me about, or us, I guess, all of us listening, what you do for work. Are you using your social degree now in your kind of day job? A
little bit. So I also have a paralegal certificate, which I got when I first moved to Ohio. That's how I got into the law firm and things like that. But so I do, it's just funny. I do compliance side of things. So I work in a substance abuse bureau for our Department of Public Health, and I do licensure for substance use disorder treatment facilities in the state. So not individuals, but the programs that we do licensure for. So we handle renewals. If someone wants to start providing services, we get them licensed, and then also any complaints that come in.
Interesting. So if I decided I wanted to open up a center for substance abuse, rehabilitation, whatever, I'd come to you and say, this is what I want to do. And you'd tell me like all the guidelines I need to follow, all the certifications we need to have, like all that kind of stuff, and make sure that we're doing what we got to do. That's cool. Or if we weren't, somebody could report us and you're the one who'd check it out.
Right. Yeah. Or if you were providing, sometimes we'll get calls of folks not understanding that they need to be licensed in order to provide those services and things. And it's all Iowa code and all fun, those kinds of things. So it's different. And I would say that was the part of social work I enjoyed was macro level, seeing big picture things. My brain always kind of just goes down rabbit holes and, rings out when there's issues, or I think about why is this happening? So I do enjoy I never really wanted to be clinician or an independent practitioner or anything like that. So I do enjoy more of like the policy side of things, I guess.
Yeah, I really enjoy that. It's funny you should mention that. This podcast is recorded a little bit in advance of when it will be released, but we're at the end of 2021, and Spencer and I have been reading a lot of books because Stitch People is growing, and I know this is, social work versus Stitch People, very different, but conceptually, what we're having to do is there's this phrase of whether you're working in the business or on the business. And working in the business, at least as far as Stitch People goes, would be like designing patterns or like being in the community, Working on the business is like exactly what you said, like putting systems and policies, and like as we bring on team members, what does that look like? Getting communication guidelines and how we communicate so that like the Stitch People experience is consistent. And it's really, really fascinating and really exciting to both Spencer and I, especially Spencer. But it's interesting to think about, like you said, sort of the macro lens of like, what's going on here? How do we solve problems for many people at once instead of one-on-one? Like, can we anticipate wider, I don't want to say like problems and issues necessarily, but kind of.
Right.
It's interesting to sort of, like you said, just wrap your head around the full thing and chew on, I don't know, the macro version. That's really, I appreciate that. That's really cool.
Right. And we, I had a teacher explain it to us once, like we're the mat in front of the door people wipe their feet on, like get most of the stuff off. And then you still need the spot cleaners. You still need the mopper, right? And that's kind of a prevention thing, allegory too, or whatever you want to call it. But so that's always just kind of been where more, I think, that way. But so I was able to tie in Stitch People a little bit to my social, I don't know, I don't want to say justice, but my social work heart.
Okay. Yeah.
But during, as we all know, May of 2020 was, we were in the deeps of it, and it was just bizarre because we were watching the COVID anyways, in December, I had friends this is going to be bad. I'm like, I'm in public health. Nothing's really blowing up. I think it will be okay. And then by March, we're in Iowa, and I'm like, oh, the big cities will be locked down. But then, no, we were too, kind of.
Everyone everywhere.
But in May was, the big, the Black Lives Matter movement became very big. And just to, like I said, I'm from a small town in rural Iowa. And one way to help raise awareness and raise money, I said I would stitch people, like individual stitch portraits, if they would send me a receipt of an organization that was supporting a Black Lives Matter movement. Anyway, anyone they chose, but they had to pay at least like $15. And then I would pitch that, I would stitch them a little portrait of themselves with a little bubble saying like Black Lives Matter, or I'll do better, or whatever they wanted. No justice, no peace was one that someone picked too. And so I raised some money for that. Or
that's really cool.
I didn't, but they raised it. For their little
exactly. You helped promote the raising of money. You were definitely involved for some people. That's great.
And I was, trying to figure out, I read the book, and I know the legal side of things a little bit, but I was like trying to make sure the copyright, and I could do that. But I know that like I wasn't getting the direct money. So I'm like, oh, that's good. And then a few months later, I was like, that was a really easy thing for me to do. And our school was thinking about doing some fundraisers, the parent group of our school. And I was like, I do not want to sell anything. I don't want to go door to door. I don't want to ask people. I don't.
It's a whole thing.
Yes. Everyone's probably reading on the internet. They don't want magazines. I don't want to do anything of that. And so I decided to do portraits of families. And I thought, okay, I can do this. And I looked through the book, and I'm like, okay, this is all kosher. And I said, I'm using this book, Stitch People 2nd edition, whatever. Like, this is what my patterns are based on. Yes, I prefaced all that. And but I was able to raise, I thought maybe because like the last one I had like 20 people sign up for that. And I was like, okay, but
that's pretty good.
I had quite a few people sign up for the stitch portraits, and I think I should have priced them a little higher. I don't even remember. I think it was like 35 for 4 people.
Whoa.
Yeah. But I just wanted people to like give money to the school. But I raised close to like 15 or 1,800, and then I was able to get that matched. So it worked out.
Well done.
Yeah.
That's so great. I think I Stitch People stuff is such a great way to contribute to fundraising efforts, kind of any kind. Like you said, especially it works well in schools because ostensibly that's parents with children who a family portrait would appeal to, this kind of thing. Right. I've also heard of people doing it for like animal shelters where you can work with your local animal shelter for if somebody wants a little like portrait of them with their new pet, it's, an additional $100 or whatever to the adoption fee, but then it goes to the organization, and then they get the little portrait, that kind of stuff. Right. There's a lot of really fun, and like you've tapped into the kind of the price matching, or send me a receipt for a donation to a specific cause. Like that, those are such cool, creative ways to get involved in something that you believe in, while also being able to like feed your crafting bug. Because this is like a common theme, is what do you do with all of the cross stitch stuff that you do? Like you can only hang so many on your wall. You can only make so many family portraits for yourself and your loved ones. So that's a really cool way to keep busy and keep doing something that you love, but have a, that give back element, which is really, really cool. Well done. Congrats.
Right. No, it was,
awesome.
It's great. And I just loved having that idea of, I don't really remember where it all clicked. Maybe I saw someone else do it, but just having that template makes it so easy. And it, after like maybe the 10th one, I was like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? I think I started that in October and I finished it in April.
Wow.
So it took a while.
Yeah.
But I made sure I prioritize, like if anyone told me this is for a Christmas gift or I need this by this day, I prioritize those. And then towards the end, I left like my loved ones or my best friends. Cause I'm like, they were like, whenever you get to it. And they shouldn't have said that. And one of my best friends, she chose like this isn't a Stitch People thing, but she chose like the Bernie Sanders sitting with his mittens,
Yeah.
So that he's going to probably get sent off soon. So that one I've just held on to forever, but she doesn't, it's fine. But it just makes me laugh because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm still kind of working on this. Yeah. But it's neat. And I think I'll do it again in a year or two, but it was a lot. I think I might, if we do a silent auction option this year, I might just say I will put up 2 different like portraits and people can bid on those and I'll just do 2 instead of whatever. Or
if it's a silent auction, you could make them like that you only are doing, a handful or something. And then people have to compete with each other to get it, on the price.
Right. And maybe that's what I'll do. Yeah. So we'll see. But I do enjoy it. It allows you to be so creative and just capture things of people. And, some of the girls' teachers I've had, I'm like, what does your teacher say a lot? And then, put that in a bubble. And it's just cute and unique.
That's a great idea. I love that you do speech bubbles. That's a really fun idea.
Yeah.
Really cute.
Makes it a little more funny. I don't know.
It's like, it adds a little humor, a little personalization. Like it's just an extra little, it's just so fun to me, the way people incorporate just personal elements, people who include specific colors and styles of wedding florals in a little floral motif of a wedding portrait, or a little speech bubble for a teacher's brilliant, or, just, I don't know, just all the different ways. Have you found, well, first of all, when did you start cross-stitching is my first question.
So I was a big knitter and crocheter.
Okay.
Before, and I started that
fiber art friendly.
Yes, I love it. Just something with making your hands and seeing the progress.
Right.
And I was making hats for everyone. And then I was just, one of my friends that I met at Public Health, she was really into cross stitch. And I'm like, that's interesting. Because I only thought of rabbits and dresses. In the 90s. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly. I call them ABC teddy bears or kittens in baskets.
But I always just think of rabbits and pioneer dresses, or I don't know.
My mom literally made some little rabbit stuffed animals in dresses. Like I remember playing with them as a kid, like little stuffed animals. They were cute. It was so a very
trendy thing, and like the doily necks on dresses. Anyways,
country chic in the 90s.
Very 90s in Iowa. For me, for sure. And that's what I always thought of. And I was And I think there was a time my mom did try to get me to learn to sew and tried cross stitch, but it wasn't for me at that time. And so I was like, I found some cute patterns on a Etsy shop. Do you want me to say the?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay. Feel free to share.
So it's the Strained Stitch is what it's called. And she has a lot of cute things like a Bob Ross, and emojis and
emojis,
like
so
just
fun.
some cute stuff. And so I think I just bought one to see if I could do it.
This is a great aesthetic. Whoever this is, very fun. I love it. There's a cross stitch right now. I'm looking at her site. It has like a floral thing at the top and a floral thing at the bottom, and the words in between just says, "This took forever." Which is like every cross stitch ever.
Right. And I think I would lurked on a subreddit for the cross stitch subreddit, which I will say those subreddits, that and embroidery, they're always the most supportive people in the world. And I just love it. There's really no trolls, but I guess they get picky about the backing. But that's really the only thing.
Certain fights you just don't want to pick.
Yes, right. But so I, did that, and I think it's one that says, doing my best.
Oh yeah.
And then,
love it.
Yeah. So this had been the Christmas of 2019, I would say. 18. My birthday's right following. So I got that. I got my first cross stitch stuff for birthday, Christmas, because that's how you do when your birthday's close. So
Spencer's the same. He's December 19th. So
that's awful. Yeah, I'm January 3rd, and so I get it. But I did my so that's when I started, was around that time, and I just would find pattern. And I told people like I'll do. And then my friend was doing, she did a silent auction at Public Health, and she did the portrait thing. And I was like, that's such a cool idea. And then I asked my sisters, whose birthdays are later in January, like, do you want something off this, like a pattern I can do, or do you want me to try and make a family for you? And so they each decided. And then from there, I'm like, this is actually really fun. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. So I just kind of kept going as time went on. This must have been so soon after Target got these big bags that perforated bags.
Stitchable things. Yeah.
Right. And my friend, or my neighbor, who's also my husband's college roommate, which is a whole thing, but she helped us find our house essentially. I know. And she's a very dear friend to us. But she wanted like a Ruth Bader Ginsburg bag. Yeah. So we call it Ruth Bader Ginsburg bag. And I made her one of that. And I think the pattern might have been from Stranded Stitch too, that I used. But and that was a big hit. And I found some fabric on Spoonflower or whatever, and that kind of matched, and relined the bag and broke the needle. I don't really know how to sew. I just kind of was trying to figure out how to do a liner and watching YouTube. Thank God for YouTube. That's really
seriously
what helped me with some of my cross stitch issues. I mean, your books are very helpful too, like the French knot and how many strands to use and all of that.
But pictures only go so far.
Right. And it's just, and then it's like, oh yeah, I have to read what that says. I can't, I just want to get into it. And
totally. I feel you.
I should have read to use 3 strands on that, whatever. But that was a lot of fun because it was just so big. Yeah. And you're using 12 strands instead of 2. So it was just very different. Yeah. But I should send you pictures of that. But that was probably one. And then people would ask her, where'd you get that? And she would refer them to me. But I still have a couple bags. I just haven't decided what to do with them yet. Sure. And I'm a little because I might make a gift for someone or something. Yeah. But I'm I should have just taken but I'm how do you price that? Because I'm I think I would charge quite a bit. And I don't think people like knitting and crocheting. I'm used to that as well. People don't understand the amount of.
Right. Tell me this, if you knitted or crocheted a blanket, just a little lap blanket for watching TV or whatever, how many hours would that take?
I mean, and it really just depends. I mean, it would take me a while. I mean, a hat took me 2 hours, but then I was using nice fibers. So that was costing me, could cost up to $20 a skein, right? And a blanket could probably take me a couple days.
Yeah, I was going to say a blanket. I was just trying to visualize if a hat is this much stitching,
right?
you need a blanket that's at least 10 or 15 of that amount. That's what, 30 to 40 hours minimum.
Right there. Oof. And then you're paying for if you're using very nice yarn, that stuff. And that's the one thing I really, really love about cross stitch is Ada.
Right.
And floss.
And 40 cents a skein. And the skein will last you 2 years if it's a color you don't use a lot.
Right. And it's okay. And, you could go run to Joann's and pick up 7 colors and it's not going to break the bank. Where I feel yarn, it was I really either had to get people to prepay or they would buy their own yarn and bring it to me, and which is fine. But I don't think people realize that that's the one thing of handmade and things that I try to be very cognizant of. And like my husband does do some graphic design and art and things, and internet design for some things, but I don't think people always realize, or even like social media posts, right? Like it's very different than your personal account, like when you're actually doing that for a job or whatever. And I don't think that always like translates well. And it's just very interesting. Like we're like, oh, that doesn't take time at all. And I'm like, are you kidding? Like, but
and especially with, like you mentioned, social media, there are so many services and apps that have great templates, and that's a great place to start. Like that really can help. But yeah, when you're developing, like you said, your husband, if he does graphic design, I used to do graphic. I'm kind of like you when you said I've had a bunch of different jobs. I'm like, I feel you there. I used to work as a graphic designer for a startup. I worked there for like 2.5 years, and to like maintain brand standards for a company and to develop a brand voice, a visual brand voice that uses colors, and like to understand the software and the time that takes, and just there's a lot that goes into it that you don't think about. It's like just, everybody can speak, everybody can make sentences with words, but like the nuance of a well-trained writer to like make a novel out of words, I mean, that's something totally different. And it's the same thing with visual stuff. I don't know. And it's hard to explain. It's creative professions are very tricky that way, because everyone's got a spark of creativity. And if you've got a good eye, it's like, oh, I can do that. And that actually, I mean, even with Stitch People, it's one thing that I really appreciate, I think, about Stitch People is that people go, oh, that's interesting. And it sparks more and more and more ideas of things that people can do with it. And I love that. But yeah, it's an interesting conundrum with, like I said, with creative professions just generally. So,
right.
And again, just even down to the raw time, like you mentioned.
And I think that's where, I tried to explain when I did the one fundraiser, like each little person takes me a couple hours. Yeah. Like I know they look small, but I'm like, so it takes me a while to do a portrait. Or if you decide, I had a few people like, oh, can you put a hat, or whatever. And I'm like, yes, I can, but it's just going to take me a little longer. Like you're not going to get this tomorrow then, and everyone's fine with that, but it just is kind of funny. Like, I don't think it always, and how would people know unless they do it? Because it looks small. So
just the patience and the precision. Do you ever get that thing where sometimes if I'm in the mode, and I've been cross stitching for a couple hours, like it's almost like the motor skills are so fine of just like squeezing the little needle and like that I almost like my body, I just want to like burst sometimes. Like it's like my tiny little muscles get like the little, I just get antsy and I just want to like run around for a minute. I don't know. It's that's the best word I have for it, is I just feel like I want to burst sometimes, and I have to like put it down and like jump and like stretch and like just because it's just this really patient, fine thing. Does that ever happen to you? I don't know if that's a weird thing.
And with knitting and stuff too. And then I'd be like, oh, but if I stop now, I have to like remember where I am. And then I think that's why I like cross stitch so much more. I love them both for their own reasons, but I've really, cross stitch has really become my favorite, and I'm going to try to get into embroidery here soon. I haven't been watching them live, but I have them recorded, the new follow along.
Oh yeah, the holiday jingle.
Yeah, so I'm hoping to get to that eventually.
I've got it right. Oh my gosh, I spent so much time Monday getting us up to speed for week 3's class. I'm having a fun time because embroidery, it's not new for me, but it's just I mean, as a lot of people know, Stitch People was sort of a pendulum swing for me into like minimalism as far as like needleworks goes, because of exactly what you said, the rabbits in dresses or the kittens in baskets or whatever. Like it's these like hundreds of colors, big like 8x10 minimum, finished pieces that are going to take me months and months and months. I just don't have the patience for it. So I really wanted to like boil it down and just do like big bang for your buck little things. And so to be expanding again into embroidery and into all this stuff is like really fun and interesting. It's fun to apply it in new ways. But yeah, it's a lot of it's coming back, and a lot of it I'm like having to relearn, and it's fun to see it come together. So I hope you enjoy your foray into it.
Right. I've seen this really cool project. Someone like takes a big hoop, I don't That's not helpful, and then they divide it into like the triangles for 12. So each month and journal, they do like a little symbol for each day and each month as it goes around. And I'm like, maybe I'll try that and practice that way. But I probably I will know like to think like it won't look great, but at least it'll be like it'll make me force me to do something daily.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Or maybe I'll just say, I'm just going to do January or something. But, so that's my goal. Cause I was going to start it last year, but I took on that other project and then everything has just been off, obviously. So it's like, I just want to sit. I don't want to do another project right now.
Right. So, yeah. Sometimes you need a little break. That's okay.
Yeah. So that's where I'm headed. That. Yeah. I got the house book, I think.
Oh yeah.
For Christmas last year, I think I put that on my list. So I've looked through it, and we have some beautiful brick houses in our neighborhood and things. So I know there might be people that might be interested in something like that. But
and if you have other people who are interested, again, that's like a really great excuse to just kind of practice and have somebody to give it to and have a reason to do it. That can sometimes be helpful and motivating that like, oh, I'm doing this for someone. I want it to be good because I'm giving it away. And so you sort of force yourself to like learn it and do it well. And, it's a whole thing. So.
Right.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned you're already on the YouTube train, because what I like about Teresa's book is it's an interesting thing with custom homes. All homes are going to be custom because I'm sure two houses are alike, but it's, many, many houses. There are many different styles, many colors, many windows, finishings, all the things. Same thing with families. Every family is different. And so it's like, how do you make a pattern for every unique person in the world or every unique home in the world? And so I love that her book is like, here's all your options and here's how to stick them together. Go, It walks you through like the method of it versus it's not so much a how to stitch book, but a how to boil down a house into an embroidery pattern book, which is helpful. Because I think that's anybody can watch a technique video on YouTube, but it's like how to translate gutters into embroidery stitches of some kind.
Right.
So
yeah, I'm excited to try it. So
cool. Well, make sure to post pictures as you go, because that'd be great.
Yes, I will do my best. I usually do post that. Yeah. So
love it. So do you come from a big family or no? And the part B of that question is, are you part of a crafty family? Like, is everybody in your family kind of arts and craftsy, or is this just a you thing?
So I'm the youngest of 4 children and then my parents. So, there were 6 of us. So it seemed big and compared to like my friends, and then we're a little bit spread out. So my sisters are twins, and they're 7 years older than me. And then for some reason, my parents kept having children, even though the first time they had twins. So then my brother, who's 5 years older than me, and then me. So my mom, it was always pretty crafty that she would sew everything, a lot of our clothes, and she just knew how to sew. She's a good cook. She worked a little bit out of the house and things like that, but was mostly home when we were at home. Lovely, so she worked at the school in the lunchroom. Cool. So like she was off when we were home, so she could do that. So we were lucky to have her in that way. But I was in 4-H. So we had to do, and I did not live on a farm. So we did projects. So there was like a project or like a home ec kind of side of 4-H. And then there's also like livestock. Okay. So I did like home improvements, or you could do sewing projects or craft, whatever. And so home improvement could be like a decorative wreath you make or whatever. And then you go sit with the judge and they tell you what they like about it, or if it goes to state fair or whatever. And so she really would find all these like crafty things that we would do together. And a lot of times it was a lot of her hand in it, I will be honest. But that's really, I think, what helped me kind of be like, oh, I can make things. Yeah.
I love that. So you were kind of raised with that creative intuition, right, and instincts.
Right. I was not good at art. I didn't have patience for coloring books when I was little. That was more my sibling. Like my sister and my brother were really into drawing. They would draw like their own characters and write story, like comic books, that we were kind of interesting.
Love that
people.
For them. I'm with you where I'm like, that takes too much time, too much patience.
I would look at it all and be like, that's so cool. But I never drew, my own, or I would try and I'm like, this doesn't look like theirs. And I would just be done with it. But I didn't have patience for coloring either. I would just kind of scribble when I was really little, like my mom said, I would just and I would be done. And so, but yeah, the hands-on stuff, I always enjoyed like playing with Play-Doh and things like that.
Yeah, same.
So I think I
love that you mentioned that. I loved Play-Doh as a kid.
Right?
Like having all these memories.
I think I needed like the tactile, like making actual things with my hands. So, which makes sense now that I like to like see and I love how it's like a dot matrix printer too. Like you slowly see like it come to, there's something very satisfying about that to me. I don't know what that
Watching
a
portrait come together is like very mesmerizing.
So that's the family. That was my
I love
upbringing.
That.
Yeah.
And do you find that your daughters are sort of creatively inclined as well? Do they show a lot of interest in what you're doing?
Yeah, they like to. Again, I bought them like it's like the big plastic grid with yarn and the big needle, and they'll play around with that. But they're more into drawing and coloring.
Oh, interesting.
Which is
it's
totally
like every
fine.
Other generation.
And they really enjoy making characters out of like toilet paper and paper towel tubes.
Oh, interesting.
Like, my
the
oldest
little cylinders, right?
Yeah. So my oldest daughter's really got really into history.
Oh, cool.
She's 7. She's second grader, but so she had these Who Was books, which is like a series of like all historical figures, like Helen Keller we read Robert E. Lee, we've read Sacagawea, we've read Einstein, like all Betsy Ross, all these different people. And I'm learning a lot too, honestly.
That's really cool.
But she was making the toilet paper tube people of historical people. And then we used them as decorations at her birthday because she had a history themed birthday, of course. So
a history themed birthday. That's like so cool and sophisticated for a 7-year-old.
I know. It was fun.
I think I had like a dog themed birthday party when I was 7.
Right.
Oh gosh, that's so great.
Something, very like smiley faces or whatever. But she wanted, so we did that. And it was a lot of fun. And so then she did like she was starting a Star Wars set. And I mean, now we have like just this bin full of them, and I'm like, so we gotta figure out something to do because they're like starting to overtake the house. But it's very cool. They do stuff like that, and they like to write little books.
I love it
and do that stuff. Yeah,
so they're that's
pretty
very
crafty.
cool. Yeah, they're interested in making things too. I think that's so great, and I think it's cool, especially in the Stitch People community. People who are cross stitchers who have kids. It's often like, so, it's cool to spend creative time together, whether you're doing the same thing or not. But there's something to be said for making something and them seeing your example that and it fosters that in them and being able to give them ideas and feedback. Like, I don't know, it just seems like a really great symbiotic, like just this like inherent human thing to make together and to create and all that. I love it.
Right. And I let them pick out each a pattern when I first started because they saw me making stuff for other people. And at the time, my oldest, she's just, I love her. She's just very unique. But she was in love with like Bob Ross, like in love. And so I made her a Bob Ross portrait. And then my other one, they both have red hair, my girls. But there's like the 2 twin emojis of the cat ears.
Oh, yeah.
And then they have red hair, and that's what she picked out for her. So,
cute.
That's what they got. And then they keep asking me, I think I have a Frida Kahlo that's coming, and maybe a Susan B. Anthony or something that is in my queue for them next. I know they'll change my mind, so I'll ask again before I even try to.
Good idea, especially depending on the latest Who Is book.
Yes, right.
Might change.
So it's just funny. But,
I love that.
Yeah.
So do you have any other hobbies or interests? I mean, as if you have time for it, being a full-time mother and a full-time social worker and a cross-stitcher and knitter and crocheter. But do you have any other like non-crafting kinds of hobbies?
I really do love TV.
It's
I
a girl
spend
after
a lot
my
of
own
time.
heart.
Yes. And that's another thing I think why I also liked those hobbies is because it coordinates very well with that. So I am a big reality TV person.
Ooh. Go on.
Love
I love
Bravo.
it.
Anything.
What is it
Bravo.
about reality TV that appeals to you?
I just love the drama, and I just love watching these people. Like, I shouldn't say these people, but I really just love watching like how we're going to act for when the camera's on. And I just try to imagine myself, like if I was there, what would I be doing? Like, would I be pointing my finger to, or would I just be sitting there like, what is going on? Or I don't know. There's just something. I know it's very overproduced. I know it's not super real. My sisters are quite a bit older, as I mentioned.
7 years?
Yeah. And when we were growing up, we weren't really allowed, like my parents were pretty protective. I don't know what the right word is. Strict. So like no Goosebump books, no Simpsons, even though later on my brother and I
Simpsons either.
But my brother and I think when I was like in 5th grade, we're watching it.
Yeah, sure.
So we just started.
How defiant.
Then, right, I know. And then but MTV was a big no-no.
Oh, same in our house.
But my sisters would have been in their teens, so that's like what's the last thing you should say is never ever do something. Right. That's all you want to do. And so we learned how to reprogram the channel back into our TV. Because I think my parents just deleted it out. But if you entered the number, you could go right back to it.
Oh, yeah. Like flipping to it, it would skip. Right. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they were in high school. So I had to have been at least in 2nd grade. But Real World started.
And that was kind of the beginning. That was right at the
it was
front
the
end.
Beginning of it. And I remember just sitting and watching, and I'm sure I was a little bit older, so I was probably watching like reruns because I don't think I remember, like I would have been in 1st or 2nd grade when the first season was on. But I remember loving Heather B and loving Eric and loving Julie, like that first season. And so I know I've seen it multiple times, but it was because my sisters were watching it. I was in the room. I was going to watch it too. And I think that really is what started. It was just very interesting to see people interact. I really love to see hear people's stories. Yeah. What makes them? Why are they doing those things?
They're drivers.
Yes. Yeah. And there's just something very interesting to me about that. I love memoirs. I love hearing. I did a storyteller project where I told a story in front of an audience. And I love all that kind of stuff, like the Moth podcast. I don't listen to it very often, but if I have a long road trip, I'll, download a few of those. I love that kind of stuff. Yeah. And that's what interested me about this podcast, because it was just like a conversation. Like, that's what I
just want to get to know each other. Get to know, makes people tick. Well, and I think with reality TV too, what's interesting, it's exactly what you said. Like, I think most people know that like it is overproduced, like, or produced just generally, that there are producers on set who will, see something and say, let's do more of that, or respond this way. There's a little bit of micromanaging behind the scenes because it's got to be interesting and good TV and keep people watching, right? But I think even knowing that makes it all the more interesting, because it makes you wonder, okay, without somebody meddling, how would I act in a situation like this? And then it makes you wonder, okay, if somebody told me to go cause a scene, or if somebody told me to go because it's going to make for a good episode, like, would I do that? Would I just for the potential to win some money, or for my 15 minutes of fame, or whatever it may be? Like, how far would you go for the sake of the show, knowing that it's produced and you know that it's fake, but you don't know that everybody watching knows it's fake? I don't know. It just like adds this element of like, I don't know. It's really fascinating.
Right. And it's ridiculous. I mean, I don't take it seriously at all.
Right.
There's usually a housewife I try to choose as like my ride or die, right? Like,
sure. You got to root for someone.
Root for someone the whole time, no matter what. And that sometimes gets cringy too, where I'm like, okay, I got to wash my hands of this person. But it is just fun to kind of have that. I don't know, just go in as a spectator. It's like my sport. I mean, I like sports too, but I don't know. It's just so ridiculous. You see grown women, just sometimes the things that the situations they're in or what they're saying, or it's just so
I've had
funny.
so many people tell me I need to watch either The Bachelor or The Bachelorette for this exact reason of just like, it's so interesting. People are so fascinating. You got to watch it. So yeah, it's always fun. I tend to lean towards like sitcoms or like I love, I don't know why. I just sort of lean towards like historical dramas. Like I love Peaky Blinders and I love like, I don't know, anything set back, some other time. Mad Men, that kind of stuff. Right. But so I don't watch a lot of reality TV, but when I do, it's always fascinating. I think the last one that I really got into was that Netflix one, Love is Blind.
Yeah.
And for people who don't know what it is, it's like all these contestants are in these little, you go into like, they call it the pod, and it's basically just a room, like a living room with a little refrigerator or something, but you can talk to other people, but you can't see them. And so you have to get to know each other through just talking. And then when you decide that you want to like couple up, then you get to see them for the first time. And then it, goes from there. And are they going to stay together once they can see each other and all this? So I don't know. It's interesting. But yeah, I would imagine, especially once you're familiar with the concept of a show, like a Survivor or a Bachelorette or something like that, where you sort of know what the system's going to be, and to just see different people approaching the same situation is kind of, there's something to that. I mean, clearly, these shows have been on forever.
Right. And I'm a huge Survivor fan, too.
Awesome.
I love it. And I got...
Talk about one of the early ones,
Right. And that's when I started, that started when I was in high school.
Yeah.
But, one of my friends, she's in Ohio, she would not like watch it for the life of her, and finally started. So we both pay half of a subscription. I hope I don't get in trouble for this, for Paramount Plus. So we both have it. But we're like, this is what we would buy. Like if we were going to go to coffee, we would be spending more,
Totally, exactly.
So we watch like old seasons and discuss them.
Fun.
And we love Jeff Probst. I honestly am going to say, I don't think there is a host better than him on any reality show.
Ooh, I'm going to have to watch. I'm fascinated by hosting.
Very, very good at it. And when he ever leaves, like, I think that will be interesting to see.
This is Survivor, right?
Yeah, Survivor.
Yeah, okay. And has he been on since the beginning?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
So it's also weird to go back and see like young Jeff.
Yeah.
And then like,
because what is it going on like 15, 20 years now, I think.
Yeah, it's over 20 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. And one of my dreams in life is to get like dragged by him in a challenge where he's like, Amanda, losing it all for everyone or whatever. I just want him to like just make me feel horrible. It just seems like, no chance of winning. Might as well just give up, kind of a thing. And it's like, geez. But I don't know how I would react to it. Like, my inner person would really want to just sass him back. But I'm like, I don't know. I might just kind of put my head down. I don't know. But
especially with like other people watching and cameras rolling and all that. I love it.
I think I would sass him though.
I think
because I feel like I know him. Yeah,
You're familiar enough. He doesn't know it, but you're friends.
Yes, right. He's kind of I also am like, you're kind of a doofus, but like, it just makes me laugh. And in the earlier seasons, he doesn't narrate the challenges probably until, I want to say like 4 or 5, I think that starts. But it is funny just to watch how much the game has changed. Yeah. I really enjoy the older seasons because it's more about the players. There aren't all these twists and turns and idols and all this and that. And now it's a lot more game, which is fine. It's different, but I miss like seeing like they show it, but it's not quite the same. Like I just loved that interaction with people. And how would I lie to someone's face? I wouldn't. I probably would.
Well, yeah. I mean, if it, because also there's, again, it's the psychology of it is part of it. Like if you're playing a game, is that just part of there are games like just even card games, like in my family, we called it Butthead or Chowderhead but eventually, it's Butthead. And the whole premise of the card game is that like, you're trying to get rid of your hand and you can put down like 3 cards and be like, I've got 3 aces, and it might not be 3 aces. And it's all based on like, do people believe you or not? And they can challenge you. And if they catch you, you have to take the pile. But if they don't, like you're in the clear. So if you're in the mentality of like, this is a game, maybe you would lie and feel okay about it because it's a game. You're on a game show and you're trying to win money. But at the same time, it's people. And that adds this layer of like morality that's like, ooh, I don't want to,
Right.
I don't know. It's hard.
And the people you vote off have to give you the money. And so that's the other layer of it. If I lie to everyone and they're all bitter, they're not going to give me money. So it was the point of lying, kind of, you know, like that whole thing. But some of my favorite players are the ones that just straight up were like, I swear on my, and then, you know, like in their confession, like that means nothing to me. You know, you know, one guy's swearing on his police badge or whatever. He's like, and it doesn't mean anything to me. And so, you know, and he's won twice. So
there you go.
I feel like, you know, I would maybe try to go that approach. You know, I sound sweet and young and, you know, so I feel like people sometimes fall for that too. So I would use that to my advantage for sure.
Ooh. Okay. Maybe I need to watch Survivor. I've seen a few episodes, but I've never like committed to a season where I'm actually invested.
If you want season recs, I can totally send you some of those too, where to get started.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite season that you know off the top of your head for Survivor?
I do, but it's like returning players. So it may not be...
So you want to get familiar with them before you?
Yeah, but Tocantins, and I think it's season 15 or 6. No, because 16's China. It might be 15. Tocantins is what it's called. They are in the Amazon.
Okay.
But that's probably one of my favorite seasons, honestly.
Everyone listen up. Season 15.
Tocatins.
Tocantins. Okay.
Yes.
I'll have to check it out.
And there are some really, really great players. Just fun to watch. Kind of annoying and that's another thing. Like if I was stuck for 40 days, I don't think I would make it. Like I just like vote me off. But that's probably one of my favorite seasons. And then 16 is, I already said I was trying, but I think it's actually Micronesia or Fan versus Favorites is a favorite of mine.
Interesting.
But you might want to watch some of the seasons where there's actually fan, you know, like where you've seen the favorites before. But that's a good one. And then Pearl Islands has a few of my favorite players too. I think that's season 7. So there you go.
And they go different places. That's cool too. It's enough to keep you interested. That's really fun.
Lately they've been stuck in Fiji. They've stayed there the last few years. I know,
what a place
right?
To be
I think production's got a nice setup, so they're not leaving, which makes sense. But so they've been in the last like 5 seasons. I think they've been in one place, but in the beginning, they're everywhere.
That's cool. Awesome. Well, it sounds like we know sort of what your favorite shows are as we're sort of here to the end of the episode. Let's do a few more favorites. Do you have a favorite DMC Floss Color?
Ooh, that's good.
Not everybody does, but which is okay. I don't know that I could name off the top of my head, but
for like dark brown hair, I've been using 3371 a lot.
I love 3371. It's super dark.
It's very good. I'm using it for a Jeff Probst.
I love it. And it's a great one to take a thread of that and mix it with 2 threads of black if you want a warmer black.
See, there you go.
Because some black tones are warm, so
yes, I love that. That's one I know off the top of my head. And then you know, versatile. Like I would say like 310. I'm always looking for that. You know,
yep.
There's a few that are like always out when you go, but. And then I like the 666 too. That's a very bright red.
Red, that's what I thought. Yeah, super bright.
Which is kind of not a great number, but I do love that red.
Easy to remember.
Red.
I love it. Do you have a favorite book that you've ever read?
Yes. I have a lot of favorite books.
I love that.
I know. So my favorite right now would probably be Hyperbole and a Half by Allie Brosh. It is a kind of a graphic novel.
Is she the illustrator? I used to follow her blog.
Yes, so it's her blog and a book.
My gosh. Her cartoons are so
hilarious. Funny. I love her humor. Funny.
Same.
She also talks a lot about some mental health struggles that I can identify with. And I just love how she puts it into words and picture words, whatever, explains it so well. And she's so funny. It's just like, there's ones where I'm just like crying. It's funny or you're crying because it's sad. And she just came out with her second book last year. So that I love both of those are probably, those are ones that I will always, like, I try to read every year.
She, if I recall, she started like blogging. So back in like the early 2000s when blogs were a thing, and she would do her cartoons, her drawings on like Microsoft Word using, it started with, I don't know, I mean, I should probably look on Instagram. I'm sure she's there too, but like, at least that's where it started. So it was kind of this real elementary style because of the limitations of what that program was in the early 2000s, but she was still able to make them so like weirdly expressive and effective. So funny. So yeah, definitely hyperbole.
Right. I highly recommend that. And then my favorite author right now is probably Taylor Jenkins Reid, who did like Daisy Jones and the Six, and Malibu Rising is her new one. And
what genre?
They're fiction, but they're kind of historical fiction, but pop culture. So she has one like Evelyn Hugo, which is kind of loosely based on like a Liz Taylor type of person, and her 7 husbands is the rest of the title. And then the next one is Daisy Jones and the Six, which is kind of like a 70s band, like I'm trying to think. Fleetwood Mac or something.
Oh, great. Cool.
In the band. And it's kind of done documentary style. And I think they're making a show of it, which I'm really excited about. And then Malibu Rising is like a family. They live in Malibu in the 80s. And so it kind of is going through the time. And there's kind of a character that shows up in all of them as well. And fun. So she kind of has that connecting thread as well. But I love her style. And I love that pop culture-y I don't know. I just love that.
Yeah,
I think
that's cool.
Because it was restricted from me when I was younger, so that's all I wanted to take in.
I love it. Do you have a favorite holiday?
Oh, I would probably say Halloween. Just because, and Thanksgiving. I just love fall. And there's something about costumes, like what people pick. I think kind of like a karaoke song. I love that, like seeing what people pick. Because it says a lot about that person to me. Right. And I don't know.
Karaoke especially.
Right.
I love that one where it's like, are you going to choose something that you actually can sing well because you want people to know how well you can sing? Or are you going to choose something silly because you're being self-deprecating? Or because you're just genuinely silly? Or are you going to choose something that you think you can sing well, but you don't know you can't really sing that well? And how do you respond to that? It is a very interesting social experiment. It is interesting,
right? Or are you even going to get on the stage and participate?
Right, exactly.
Or are you, what
Or will you only do a duet? Or are you reluctant? Or I love that. Yeah, that's very intuitive of you.
Right. All through my life, I just loved having fun costumes, and I don't know. And it's just fun to see what my girls want to be. I just love it. And Thanksgiving I like because it's family time usually, but no pressure of gifts.
Oh, yes. Oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. You get together, you spend time together, and there's that kind of, for lack of a better word, like ritual, the dinner, the whatever. But no gifts. Oh, what a relief.
No gifts.
Oh, so that's brilliant.
I like that. And no snow usually. I don't know. I live in Iowa, so I just jinxed us totally. But
Okay. And do you have, this one's a little obscure, depending, because I don't remember things like word for word, but do you have a favorite quote or a favorite piece of advice that you've ever gotten? Something of that nature.
So most recently, this is kind of morbid, so I apologize. But I think with just the state of the world with COVID, it just put a lot in perspective for me, and really just made me think about a lot of things. And
sure. I would say, especially given like your line of work and the impact that you're seeing it's having on a lot of people.
Right. And I think we're all just getting it pulled at all different ends and pushed down on different ends, and we're exhausted, right? But I think one thing that really is a mantra that I have lately is like, on my deathbed, if I'm on my deathbed, I'm never going to be wish I stayed longer at work that one day, or wish that I would have pushed out 7 more emails. Like, I'm never going to regret that. And so that's really kind of helped me just keep my boundaries, especially that I was lucky enough and am still lucky enough to work from home most of the time. Nice. So like just putting those boundaries in place and things.
Working from home can be a lot harder, because Spencer and I have been working home since 2014, I guess, is when I started doing Stitch People more full time. But so a lot of people, it's like, oh, you're so lucky you get to work from home. And now that a lot of more people are working from home, it's more common to see that like it's really hard. Like you said, those boundaries aren't as clear when you leave the house. you're working, and then when you come back to the house, you're doing house stuff and family stuff and life stuff. But when it's all in the same place, it's sometimes hard to manage and leave your desk and go do that house stuff or get to the work that you have to do, how to balance that for sure.
Right. And, like everyone wants to do a good job at their job. And so sometimes it's like you feel like, oh, I got to stay and do this, but it's like, it's going to be there tomorrow. Right. And if I were to step out on the curb wrong in front of someone tonight, like that, like it's not even going to matter. And so like, I know it's kind of morbid, but that's how I think it is.
I think it's kind of healthy. It's very stoic. Spencer and I have gotten into stoicism as a philosophy. And there's this, phrase called Memento Mori, which I think basically translates to like remember death, because like there are two things that are certain for all of our lives. It is birth and death. And like, it's absolutely true. If you just keep that even just like a little bit in the back of your head, like you said, on my deathbed, am I gonna, there's research, there's people who have studied people with terminal illnesses or people who are near to death, and none of them say, oh, I regret I didn't spend more time at the office. Like there are very clear things that are common to people's satisfactions and regrets and things like that. So I don't think that's, it's a little heavy maybe, but I don't think it's morbid. I think it's okay. It's good to touch in on that aspect of reality. So, yeah.
That and, everything is temporary. I like, yes, as someone that, like I'm always, trying to plan ahead and control, especially again in this environment. I want to control what I can control because everything else seems, but I just
chaotic.
have to know. I know. And I know this is the universe like telling me like, that ain't going to happen. Like you need to stop trying. But I'm pretty stubborn.
Right.
But I think that's something I keep in the back of my mind too. Like, So.
Yeah, everything's temporary, especially problems that seem really, really big. Even sometimes, there's that old adage like time heals wounds and whatever, where it's just like, just even the mere time passing sometimes makes the thing temporary. Just the fact that like, it has been a few weeks now, it is gone. Or like just the time that you take to get through something or accomplish something or check it off your to-do list. Like, it's kind of inevitable that it's going to move on, and that's okay.
Right.
I love that. Oh, what good notes to go out on. It's kind of like a live every day to the fullest kind of a thing. I love it a lot.
Right.
Amanda, do you have any like final thoughts or anything you want to share before we wrap up today?
No, I just want to thank you so much. And I'm sorry if I sound congested. Yesterday would have probably been a little worse. I sounded worse. I'm actually sounding better. So it all worked out, but I don't, I have some sinus thing moving through or something, but,
hasn't bothered me at all. So I'm sure everybody's like, what?
Oh no. And I don't know. I don't think I'm alone in that. I just really don't like my voice, but,
same. So. I have a really hard time listening to myself. This whole podcast thing, I'm like, it's weird. Tough,
right?
It sounds so different than how it sounds like resonating in my face, you know? So,
and I listen a lot to like Conan O'Brien's podcast. Anyways, he just is one of my favorite people too. But he always makes fun of himself too, so it always makes me feel a little better. Like, okay, it's not just me.
No.
But no, I just want to thank you for taking the time, and this has been such a great experience. So I don't really have anything else to say.
Oh, it's so nice. Well, it's Stitch People is what it is because of every single little drop in the Stitch People community ocean. So thank you for participating and being a part of it.
Okay, well, thanks.
Awesome. Thanks for your time today. Oh, my friends, I had so much fun chatting with Amanda. It is so great to learn about people, and I just appreciate so much about how she and everybody on this podcast shares so open and freely. I really appreciate all of you, and I appreciate you listening to this podcast and enjoying conversations with Stitch People like you. If you'd like to be interviewed on the podcast, please visit stitchpeople.com/podcast. And there's a link to a form you can fill out, and we will see that you're interested and get in touch with you. If you have any feedback about the podcast, we want to hear it. Please email us info@stitchpeople.com. Let us know what you think. And I'd so appreciate it if you could take a moment to subscribe to the podcast wherever it is you're listening. Leave us a rating and give us a review. It really helps with boring, snoring algorithms and internet stuff, but it also just helps us shine more goodness into the world, and that's the goal. You can check out everything Stitch People has to offer with our pattern books and downloads and merch and more at stitchpeople.com. And please, please, please connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. We'd love to see everything you post and tag us in so we can give you digital thumbs up. Lastly, I want to thank you all again in the Stitch People community, not only for your support of us, but for your positive and cooperative encouragement of one another. It is the best. I'd also like to thank the incredible Stitch People team for making all the magic happen behind the scenes. Our fully licensed jazzy tunes were created by Jonathan Boyle, and our sound designer is one and only Brandon Yost. Have a wonderful day, my friends, and happy, happy stitching. The Stitch People podcast is a production of Dmc LLC and Stitch People. Copyright 2022, all rights reserved.